Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Chiller Night Radio. I am your host, Brian Hogue. Thanks for joining us. Chiller Night Radio is the podcast version of my talk show, Chiller Chat. I have guests on the show to talk about the unexplained, mysteries beyond, paranormal activities and investigations, as well as horror movies, science fiction, comics, or any other format fitting the Chiller theme. Tonight I'll have Daniel Hageman, the director of the Butler Organization for Research of the Unexplained. We'll talk about the organization and their investigations, and we'll hear Daniel talk about his actual UFO sightings. So stay with us, and when we come back, we'll talk to Daniel Hageman.
From Haiti, land of the voodoo, comes the most infamous cult of all. Bela Lugosi as Murder Legendre.
I see death.
Master of the undead damned. The sinister power behind the white zombie.
Zombies? Yes, they are my servants.
This soul killer takes men from their graves to be his slaves. His instruments of terror, and now this fiend plots to possess a woman.
Only a pinpoint, a silver one, in a glass of wine, or perhaps a flower.
Keep it, monsieur. Keep it. You may change your mind.
Not dead? Are you mad? I saw her die. The doctor signed the certificate. I saw them bury her.
Captive in the borderland between life and death. Her brain drained of the life spark. The white zombie obeys the unholy commands of her demon master. As mindless creatures carry out his cursed will, terror explodes in horror and heartquake.
Zombie! Allez, allez!
Never eyes so evil, never powers so potent, never magic so black. Bela Dracula Lugosi as the master of the white zombie.
Watch Chiller Night Theater and Chiller Chat every Saturday night on Stream TV. Chiller programming airs every Saturday night beginning at 9 p.m. through 3 a.m. Watch Jack Shadow host classic and not so classic horror and science fiction films of yesteryear on Chiller Night Theater. Then Brian Hogue hosts Chiller Chat, the weekly talk show that discusses paranormal activities, horror and science fiction movies, and mysteries beyond. If you like horror, science fiction, and the paranormal, Stream TV is the channel to watch every Saturday night. Go to streammedia.tv, that's streammedia.tv, to connect to Stream TV's Roku channel. Or watch Chiller programming online on Chiller Night Theater's YouTube channel, or at chillernighttheater.com. That's chillernighttheater.com. chillernighttheater.com. And we're back, and we have Daniel Hageman, the director of the Butler Organization for Research of the Unexplained, on the line. Daniel, thank you for joining us tonight.
Oh, thank you for having us, Brian.
Well, Daniel, could you explain to our audience what the Butler Organization for Research of the Unexplained is?
It's a group. It's been around for 20 plus years now, a little bit longer. We hold monthly meetings, and once a year we have a conference. But the meetings are open to the public. It's more or less a gathering house for people that have had some type of sighting or encounter. They can come and share their experience and talk about it openly with other people that have had similar experiences without any ridicule or without anyone laughing at them. We investigate UFO sightings, cryptids, paranormal, just anything that has to do with the realm of the paranormal. We will go out and investigate it.
Now, what's the last investigation that you had reported to your organization?
We've actually been involved with a creature sighting in Shakura, PA. It's a winged entity. We've deemed it the Shakura gargoyle because the people that have seen it, I've interviewed 18 people to date. If you were to sit down and read the reports that the people have generated, you would swear that all these people sat at a table and exchanged notes. I've asked each and every single one of them if they could describe this thing in as few words as possible, what comes to mind. And every single one of them have responded gargoyle. It's actually, I get the goosebumps every time I think about it. It's pretty frightening as far as when you hear the description of what this thing actually looks like.
This is something, I guess the first thing that came to my mind is like something like the Mothman, or something like that. I have no idea. We hear about these winged creatures, such as the Thunderbirds, the Mothman. Now, this is something new. I've never heard of anything like this as far as something resembling a gargoyle.
The folks that have seen this, like I said, I've interviewed 18 people to date. Recently, I just interviewed was an entire family. They were on their way into Butler, to get something to eat and go shopping, apparently. And they were coming in 422 toward Butler. Mm-hmm. And the woman, she saw this thing first, thought it might have been a deer getting ready to cross the road, so she kind of hollered at her husband to slow the car down. They stated that there wasn't any traffic on the road coming in either direction at the time, so he slowed down, and when he came to a stop, they were, this thing was right outside the passenger side window of the car. It stood up. She said it was every bit of 9 to 10 feet tall, dark tan leathery hide, had wings that protruded from the shoulders down to the ground. As best she could tell, it had 3 appendages on each hand that were like claws, or had dark black fingernails that were like claws. She said the thing that stuck out the most was the red glare in the eyes. She said other than it standing up, it didn't move. It just glared at her like it was trying to burn a hole through her. Her kids were so traumatized by it. The little girl tried crawling underneath in the back seat, underneath the driver's side, and she started screaming at her husband to take off, and of course he tramped on the gas, and they fled the area. But we've had multiple sightings of similar description of what this thing is. A lot of people said, well, could it possibly be Mothman related? But until we can get pictures or, more concrete proof, you just have to more or less speculate.
Now, was this during, what time of the day was this? Was it in daylight? Was it at night?
This was in the early evening. We've had daylight sightings, people seeing this thing walking across open fields, crouched down beside these very large round bells of hay. We've had nighttime sightings.
About what's the span of time from the first report you got until this latest one?
A little over 2 years.
Huh. So this is a fairly new unexplained phenomenon, it seems.
Yes, sir.
Huh. Wow. That's really a creepy sounding experience, that's for sure.
There's a lot of speculation that possibly could be interdimensional. In every case, the eyewitnesses stated that this thing appeared to be sniffing the air, almost like as if it wasn't familiar with its surroundings. None of the witnesses that, this creature made any movement toward them. A few of the witnesses said that in 3 or 4 strides it went from one side of the road to the other side of the road off into the woods. We've had, people drawings or artist concepts of what this thing looks like. People can do a Google search. They can go to Google and type in Shakura gargoyle, and the original witness, there's a artist concept of what the creature looked like, and they can get an idea for themselves.
Wow, that's an incredible story there, and you've had various sightings from different groups of people, but they're all giving you a very similar account of what took place, or at least what this thing looks like, right?
Yes, sir. I mean, it's amazing. Like I said, if you were to sit down and read the actual reports that the people have generated, you would think that they sat at a table and said, well, I'm going to say this, I'm going to say the same thing, just worded a little bit differently. But all the reports are basically stating the same thing. So these people are definitely seeing something.
Now, you mentioned something about possibly interdimensional. For maybe audience members who aren't real aware of what you're talking about, could you explain a little bit about what you're referring to?
Interdimensional. There are a lot of reports of possible time warps or portholes opening and closing. The fact that people have stated it stood there like it was sniffing the air, not familiar with its surroundings. It's possible that a porthole opened up and this thing crossed over into our reality. And, one of the reasons why people just aren't able to track this thing, or same with Bigfoot, are they coming in and out of different dimensions?
Right, and some may think the same with even UFOs. They're interdimensional rather than interstellar. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? What have you learned over the years to make you? Does anything make you think lean one way or the other on that?
There's Albert Einstein. He basically thought that there was a possibility that you could time travel, warp ahead, warp back in time, different dimensions. You can actually travel to these different dimensions and back. So, my personal opinion, there's more than likely something to it. Many of these UFOs, it's like they claim that if you take a rubber band and you stretch it, they can actually, stretch space. They pull a rubber band and then boom, you let it go, and all that energy is propelled one direction. But there is definitely a lot of speculation, a lot of research into this type of phenomena. So my guess is, and my personal belief is, yes, there's definitely something to it.
Wow, that is, as far as UFOs go, I'm kind of amazed that there hasn't been more of a concrete disclosure by the government. I know that there have been kind of micro disclosures in a way. I like even on the news, on the major networks. I know of, like, I was talking to you the other day, before taping this today, and we were talking a little bit about this, and I know I was watching some stuff on YouTube, and there was a guy a former military intelligence official who ran the Pentagon's secret UFO unit. His name was Louis Alonso, I think. I think. I don't know if I'm getting his name right, but he's actually. I mean, there was a man who he's no longer working for the government, but he's coming right out and saying UFOs, by definition, do exist. I mean, it's a fact. They do exist, and we don't know where they're coming from. He doesn't go so far as to assume who's behind the wheel, but he does make it a point to say there's very compelling evidence that we may not be alone.
Definitely, we are not alone. There is life out there. It's absolutely ludicrous to believe that we are all there is. There's over 100 billion galaxies out there. It's like one grain of sand on the beach, or we are like one grain of sand on a beach. There's definitely life out there. Our government has been in contact with several different races of beings. They're just withholding a lot of the information from us. We're in an era of disclosure, and I'm hoping that it will take place in our lifetime. That too many people in all walks of life have actually seen and reported UFOs or USOs. Those are underwater, submersible, unidentified objects. But
right.
You have people, military, you have police officers, you have airline pilots. Just recently, there were two separate airline pilots report two different UFOs that were pacing their aircraft. They were picked up on radar. It's undeniable. You can't hide the truth forever. With the realm of cameras today, everybody carries a camera in their pocket, whether it's a cell phone or a disposable camera. But they're taking pictures and documenting these things that the government is just no longer going to be able to hide it. So, they're trying to figure out a way that they can save face. We've been lied to all our lives and led to believe their lies. But, the fact that all of mankind can benefit from making contact with our alien brothers. Yeah, there may be some rogue species out there that mean to do us harm, but I'm sure there are also races out there that, we could benefit by exchanging and learning their technologies. And the government is just absolutely H-bent in keeping us from learning the truth.
Well, as far as the different personalities, some are friendly, some would be not friendly. That's the same with us. I mean, you could run into somebody from MS-13, a very, very brutal gang, or you could run into somebody from the Peace Corps, who absolutely wants to do good for their fellow man. But commercial airports have literally been shut down to UFOs. Like in China, there have been several times that this has happened in China, and also. Right here in the United States with Chicago, the O'Hare Airport back in 2006. But Daniel, you have had some sightings, and I tell you what, we're going to go to a break real quick, and when we come back, I'd like to talk to you about your personal experiences, your UFO sightings.
Okay.
So let's go back. Let's go on a break right now, and when we come back, we'll talk to Daniel more about the UFO phenomenon.
Here in this primitive river-bottom wilderness in southern Arkansas, along with deer, duck, crane, and beaver, lurks a creature that walks upright. Whether it is a man, a monster, or a myth, no one really knows. What we do know is the people around Fouke, Arkansas say they have seen such a creature nearly 250 times since 1954. And that this creature, whatever it is, emits one of the most terrifying sounds ever recorded. Legend of Boggy Creek, rated G.
Chiller Night, The Spirit of Halloween, a young reader's book written by Jennifer Sadler, is the first of the Chiller Night series featuring Jack Shadow. 5 teenagers head out for a night of trick-or-treating, but lose themselves in a dimension of horror. Now they race against the clock to save their souls from the spirit of Halloween himself, Jack Shadow. This All Hallows Eve fantasy is a thrill a minute and the first in a new series of Halloween fun and fright. Take a step back in time through the veils between the living and the dead with Chiller Night, The Spirit of Halloween. Cover art by Rick Whitlow, illustrations by Scott Lubin. Chiller Night, The Spirit of Halloween is available to purchase on Amazon.com or get your copy at ChillerNightTheater.com. That's ChillerNightTheater.com. ChillerNightTheater.com. If you'd like to be a guest on Chiller Night Radio or Chiller Chat, contact Brian Hogue at ChillerNightTheater.com. Just go to the contact page to submit your email. Topics include Mysteries Beyond, Secret Societies, horror and science fiction movies, paranormal investigations, and much more. To inquire about being a guest on the show, go to ChillerNightTheater.com to submit your request. Go to ChillerNightTheater.com. That's ChillerNightTheater.com. And we're back, and we are talking with Daniel Hageman, the director of the Butler Organization for Research of the Unexplained. And Daniel, once again, thank you for being on the show. And you were going to talk to us now about your own personal UFO sightings.
Sure. First of all, it's my pleasure, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Personal UFO sightings, primarily why I get into this as far as the paranormal, studying UFOs, aliens, and of course eventually led to other areas like cryptids and ghosts. But getting back to the UFOs, at a very early age, I was 5 or 6 years old, my whole entire family had had an encounter. Sundays used to be the day where the family would get together and do things as a family. Would go to my grandparents for the day and have dinner and just spend the day there. And it was late evening. We were coming home. Was up near North Washington, north of Butler. We were coming south on Route 38. And my uncle had a car. I believe it was a Fairlane Skyliner. Half the roof was made out of glass or some type of plexiglass that you could look up through it. He was driving. I was sitting in the front middle seat. My mother was on the passenger side. My aunt, my 2 sisters in the back seat. I was looking up through the roof, and of course my mom, she nudged me with her arm and said, "Why are you being so quiet?" And I said, "Well, I'm looking at those funny lights." And of course, she looked up, my uncle looked up, and my mom said, "Gee, Jack," which was my uncle's name, "what do you think that is?" We got near the dam, and he pulled the car off to the side of the road and turned the lights off to make sure it wasn't a reflection from the dash lights. And when we stopped, these 2 discs, they were side by side. There was a space between them, probably 5-6 inches, but you could clearly see one was spinning to the right, the opposite one, or The one on the left was spinning the opposite direction, and it actually looked like something burning, something on fire, orangish red color, and they stopped directly above the car. He opened up the door and stepped out, did not hear any noise whatsoever. You know, my mother again said, "Jack, what do you think it is?" And he said, I haven't a clue. Got back in the car, started the car up, turned the lights on, and we continued south along the dam on Route 38. When we got to the breastwork of the dam, he pulled the car back over again. And the whole time, when the car started to move, these objects started to move with us. They paced the car, but the whole time they kept getting bigger. Now, when I first saw them, they were probably about the size of your saucers that you would get, small plates with a dinner plate setting. When we stopped the car the second time, these things were probably every bit as big as a large dinner plate and continued getting bigger, so obviously whatever it was coming down. Mm-hmm. Again, my uncle shut the ignition off. He turned the lights out, stepped outside the car, and these things were, other than getting bigger, they just stopped directly above us. Could not hear any sound. He jumped back in the car, started the car up, never turned the headlights on, peeled out, burnt rubber, and was heading south on 38 coming toward Butler. And of course, at that point, there was a few hairpin turns and trees on both sides of the road, so you could just barely see these things up through the tree canopy, openings in the trees. And eventually, we lost sight of it. My mother was hollering at him, "Turn the lights on, turn the lights on, you want to get us killed." And we eventually get home, and my mom got my sisters and I off to bed. And of course, my aunt, my uncle, and my mother, they stayed up the remainder of the night talking about apparently whatever we witnessed. Within a couple days after that, there was an article that came out in the local paper, "Northern Butler County residents startled by unidentified aerial phenomena." Have no idea what it was. Know that it wasn't an airplane. Of course, like I said, I was only 5 or 6 years of age, but my uncle was in the Navy. He was stationed aboard an aircraft carrier, worked on multiple aircraft, so he would know or have a good idea whether or not it was an airplane, helicopter, which, he stated all the years that it definitely wasn't either of those. That was my first sighting. Then it was September of 1961, there was the Betty and Barney Hill incident.
Right.
That broke in I think, Look and Life magazine. Have a copy of that magazine. I remember reading and rereading that article over and over and over again. I still have the magazine till this day. That I can remember, scouring the paper, going through anything, cutting out any clippings I could find about reported UFO sightings. Several years after that, we were living in an apartment above a grocery store. My mother, she often took bubble baths to, just break the stress from a long day, and my sisters and I fighting and just being devilish or whatnot.
Right.
But that particular day, she was going to take a bubble bath, and it was right after a really super heavy storm. She told me, she said, "Find something to do. Please don't bother me while I'm, taking my bath." And I said, okay. So I went out and I was sitting on the porch. A lot of real heavy, billowy clouds in the sky. Now, it wasn't raining. The wind wasn't blowing. There was no thunder or lightning. And all at once, I saw these oval-shaped lights sweep through the clouds. And immediately it caught my attention. Very bright. Couldn't see any type of object. You could only see these really bright lights. That sweep through, a couple seconds, that sweep back through, and almost kind of like a zigzag pattern. I went and I knocked on the bathroom door, and I asked my mom, I said, "Can you come out here and look at this and tell me what it is?" And of course my mom said, "I'll be done in a few minutes, go, don't bother me while I'm taking my bubble bath." Uh-huh. So I went back out and I watched these, saw them sweep through the clouds several more times, And till this day, have no idea what it was. I know there was no sound associated with it. Whatever it was like if somebody were to weave a spotlight across your face. And there were several of them. You know, one or two would come by, then you'd see three or four, and this pattern would repeat itself over and over again. Years after that, April 1st of 1982, I'll take you to this particular sighting. I lived north on Route 38, just north, above North Washington. Some friends of mine had come over. It was late afternoon, early evening. A beautiful day. The sky was just absolutely pure blue. No clouds in the sky whatsoever. And my wife had just put my daughters in the bathtub. And my buddy's wife, he was talking with my wife while she was bathing the kids. And I had done some work on a Jeep that I had, and I wanted to show my buddy. So we went outside, and as we went to step off the back porch, he grabbed me by the back of my arm, and he said, "Dan, what's that light back there?" And the wind was blowing. Again, no clouds in the sky. The sky was just pure blue. And it was almost like as if somebody were standing 10, 15 feet away from you and holding a spotlight directly in your eyes. You had to shield your eyes to look at this. And it was just down into the tops of the trees. I stood there and looked at it, and I said, first thing I said was, probably my landlord put a new dusk to dawn light up, and I stepped down off the porch. And as soon as I hit the sidewalk, I thought to myself, too bright to be a dusk to dawn light, and I looked back up. And at that point, this thing was just now above the tops of the trees, and this is way out in the distance. You know, really, I'm not good at judging, 200 yards, 500 yards.
Yeah.
We're talking maybe 5 football fields length away from us. And there was a big tree line, and this thing is now just above the tops of the trees, and you could clearly see it looked like a bubble that was like milky translucent, kind of like a bluish color that you could see through it, and you could clearly see the outside of some type of metallic object. I went ahead and walked out around the corner of the garage, and he followed me, and as soon as we got around the corner of the garage, I popped the hood pins on the Jeep and lifted the hood, walked back around, and I looked up, and this thing is, again, getting higher and higher, coming toward us. Stood there and watched this thing, and now you could clearly see the outline. It was a triangular-shaped object, and of course the milky translucent bubble was gone. Watched this thing, and there were 3 lights on the bottom, one on each corner, and the lights didn't blink. They pulsated erratically. And as we were standing there looking up, if you figure about a 45-degree angle looking up, all at once, the back edge of this thing, now you have a triangle. The best way I can describe it, if you were to take the rack off of a pool table, it's triangular shaped. Moved it up in the air at arm's length. That's how big this thing was. So whatever it was huge. And of course, looking up at it at a 45-degree angle, all at once across the back edge, the flat edge, probably, I'm going to say 30, 40, 50 feet, it looked like a glitter, a curtain of blue glitter coming out of it. Now, we couldn't really see anything falling to the ground. Obviously, it was some type of exhaust. And, of course, over the years, telling this story and different people writing down notes and some physicists and different people that had heard me tell this, they were writing notes as I was telling this story. And one guy approached me and he said, "Can I talk to you for a minute?" And I said, "Sure." And he said, "You probably was wondering what I was doing writing down." And he said, "When you were talking about this curtain of glitter coming out the back of this thing," he said, "You want to know what I wrote down?" And I said, "Sure." He said, "Plasma discharge." That would explain, the light blue color. Dissipated very quickly, but he thought it might have been a plasma discharge. When the exhaust quit, this thing started moving again, and we're standing there watching it. And at that point, I ran in the house. When I ran around the corner to go back to the hall, I happened to notice the TV. It looked like a kaleidoscope of colors, just color kaleidoscope, all different colors of the rainbow. You couldn't see a picture, just all these bursts of different colors. The lights were flickering in the house like we were having a power surge. And I ran back and I told my wife, I said, "Oh my God, you got to come out and look at this. You got to come out and look at this." And she said, "Dan, I can't leave the girls in the tub by themselves." So Terry, my friend's wife, she came out and joined us. I had been taking video and pictures of my children, and I had a video camera with a full magazine, fully charged battery, 35 millimeter camera with a full roll of film sitting on my dining room table. And what do I grab? A pair of binoculars and a telescope.
Right.
I go out and throw the binoculars to my buddy. I'm standing there trying to look at this thing through the telescope, and if you ever try to do that, it's almost impossible to hold that thing steady. He had put the binoculars around his neck. I threw the telescope down on the ground, and I grabbed the binoculars, and of course I was dragging him with him. And at this point, you're looking straight up. Just stand there and look straight up. And we were standing there watching this thing, and it stopped. Just hovered above us, motionless. Again, the lights on the bottom were pulsating erratically. Absolutely no sound. And to my surprise, and to Howard and Terry's surprise, my friends, between the point light and the two lights in the back, halfway between those lights, you could see crescent-shaped openings. So this thing was opening up on the bottom, one on the right, one on the left. When the openings were completely open to where you had a full circle, there were two spheres that dropped down out of this thing. And they were about the size of an average Volkswagen Beetle. That gives you an idea how large this thing was.
Mm-hmm.
And they bobbed up and down simultaneously till those openings on the bottom of that triangle-shaped craft closed. And once those openings were closed, standing looking up at this thing, the sphere on the right started spinning, and sparks started shooting out from what would be the center of that ball, that sphere. Turned to look at the one that was on the left, and in the blink of an eye, one shot north, one shot south, the lights on the bottom of this triangle started going crazy. It did a zigzag to the left, kind of a quirky 90-degree angle, and a zigzag back to the right, and stopped, and in the blink of an eye shot straight up, and you couldn't see it anymore.
That is a very detailed, amazing story, Daniel. Do you know if anybody else in the area reported this sighting, that UFO experience as well?
There were several reports that were generated. There was a group of people that lived in Carn City, PA.
Okay.
They reported just the opposite of what I just described. They saw these Volkswagen-sized balls or spheres flying around, almost kind of like they were playing tag and chasing one another, come to a stationary position, hover, start bobbing up and down, and that triangle-shaped craft materialized that just came from out of nowhere. And these things bobbed up and down until the openings on the bottom opened up. They went up inside it, and then in the blink of an eye, the triangular-shaped object was gone. There was a busload of people coming across a road from West Sunbury to Route 38. Very windy, very hilly road. And the bus driver actually pulled the bus off to the side of the road. Everybody on the bus, including the bus driver, got off the bus and watched the sequence of events that I just explained.
Wow. That is, and that happened in, did you say in the 60s?
That happened in 1982.
82. The other one before that was in the early 60s, I think.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
yes, sir.
Okay, gotcha. Daniel, that
I've had several other sightings. I don't know how much time that we have, but maybe for another show. My mother, she's had some ungodly, bizarre incidents that I could share maybe again in another show. But it's changed my way of thinking. We are not alone. There is life out there elsewhere, and I firmly believe that with every bone and fiber in my body.
Well, I can see why. It will definitely have you on the show again. I'd love to hear these stories, and but I can absolutely see, obviously, why you wanted to start up the Butler organization for research of the unexplained. I mean, who wouldn't after telling, having those experiences? How can people get in touch with you if they see anything that they can't explain? If they see any UFO sightings or anything out of the ordinary, how can they get in touch with you, Daniel?
That's a good point. There are people that are seeing things, but they are, reluctant to come forward. If anyone out there, if they see something they can't explain, they can get in touch with us. Strictest confidence. We will withhold personal information. We won't give out the information to anyone other than maybe share the facts of the incident or the sighting. But they can either contact us through our website, which is www.boru-ufo.com, or they can call me personally, and my phone number is 724-282-1710.
I know on your website you have all kinds of good advice for them, like information on noting the date and the time of the sighting, location of the sighting and direction of travel, the description of the object, the weather conditions, and the number of witnesses who actually saw this as well. So if you have any unexplained sightings, anything that you want some answers to or somebody to look into, to help you find some answers, contact Daniel Hageman and the Butler Organization for Research of the Unexplained. Daniel, thank you so much for being on the show tonight. That was an incredible story, very detailed. So thank you.
Thank you very much. It was definitely our pleasure. And whenever or if you would like to have us back, just let us know.
I absolutely will. I'll take you up on that in a heartbeat, and be looking forward to having you back on the show. And I would love to hear those other stories you were talking about. So thank you again, Daniel, and thank you to our audience. Thank you for joining us again for another night of Chiller Night Radio, and we'll see you next week.